If I don't teach, you get to.
You better stay alive, brother.
1, 2, 3. That's probably good. Sinners. We either sinners saved by grace or we either sinners lost without Jesus Christ. So if you are here this morning, we're all common. We're all have a lot in common. And that's nothing unique about it. That's just the characteristics of the way God made us. He made us to live for Him, but we are not perfect. We are imperfect. As I think about this passage of Scripture, go back and think about it for a minute. God made the covenant with Abraham that through his descendants, his generations, there would be people as many as the sands, many as the stars. And so for years he had prayed for a child. He and Sarah did not have a child until they're late in age. And finally, Isaac comes along, of course, Ishmael, through Hagar, the maidservant of Sarah. And there was strife. Hagar and Ishmael was sent to a different direction, and they had generations. The scriptures say that generations and generations of children by him. But Isaac was God's select or chosen because it was the bloodline of Abraham. And so as he's raised, or as he gets older, he needs a wife. So Abraham sends, they send him off, and basically he gets, or Isaac grows up, and Abraham dies. Isaac is there, and he becomes, the wife he chooses is Rebekah, or is chosen for him, and she comes back to live with him. So that brings us to where we are today. We have many passages, many years have passed. Isaac is getting older, and he and Rebekah have had two children, Jacob and Esau. And in chapter 25, you read the story of the introduction of Jacob, and where you see where Rebekah is pregnant with the twins, and as they are born, one of them, it comes out and he's hanging onto the heel of the other. Esau is the older, Jacob is the younger, and there's always seemed to be a strife between the two. So how do you compare these two children, these twins? If anybody in here have twins? All right, there's Glenn. Twins are unique in themselves. A lot of times it's been said they think alike, they act alike, they do different things like that. But here, Esau and Jacob were a little bit different. They actually, yes, they were a little different. Esau loved the outdoors. He was the Bible calls him hairy. It kind of gives that person, he had a hair on his outside skin, and but yet he was an expert hunter. Jacob was the guy that stayed at home. He wanted to stay close to his family. So that led to some strife later. You see a couple things happen. Isaac favored Jacob, and Rebekah favored Esau. Oh, wait, I'm going to get this straight in a minute. Isaac favored Esau, and Rebekah favored Jacob. Now I got it straight. See, I don't have twins. Thank goodness. But as they're going through this, it becomes to a point where the father's getting older. And that's where we're at today, is that before this happens, Esau is out, and he comes to Jacob, and he's hungry. And he trades his birthright, basically, or steals. Later on, he claims that Jacob stole it, but he trades some of his birthright, or his rights as being the elder, to his brother for a bowl of food. And of course, that's not everything that's going to happen, because his father has not blessed him totally. That would come later. Now, what does that have to do with us today? Well, as we think about it, as I said earlier, we're all flawed. We all have problems in our lives, and sometimes you've either met someone who's deceitful, you've either been deceitful, or you've experienced deceitfulness. Well, have you ever wondered why God uses bad people to accomplish things sometimes? Have you ever wondered how sometimes things just happen, and you think, well, my God, goodness, God's not in control of this? I remember the story one time of a pastor, and I won't even mention the state or the area, but while I was in college, there was a pastor who had been pastoring some 20 years, and then all of a sudden he gets up in his pulpit and he said, I'm just going to confess to you, I've never been a Christian, I'm denouncing Christ, I don't believe in it anymore, denouncing the Bible. And so the question came up, what happened to all these people who had become converts under his ministry? What happened? What was their faith real? So there's all kind of questions developed. It was almost as if he had been deceiving them for 20 some odd years. And I would question some of those things about him, but here's the thing, that God accomplishes His purposes, His purpose through flawed families, flawed people, flawed individuals. So imperfections were created by sin. And sin is what separates us, as Romans says, from God. And even in our flawed state, even in our flawed actions, our reactions, deceitful state, God accomplishes His goals and purposes. So why don't we be honest with ourselves and answer this question? How do you react when someone who is deceitful to you? How would you react if someone was deceitful to you? Now, we can come up with a lot of scenarios, and some of you could say, well, I can give you an example. Please don't do that at this time. But we've all probably experienced that. So let's look at this story now as it's played out. Jacob and Esau, the brothers, Esau the elder, Jacob the younger, have had this strife where Esau has sold his birthright, so to speak, to Jacob for a bowl of soup.